let's dive into the most important part. So what spikes the insulin the most? And that is quick blood glucose spike. So in the previous videos, you saw the difference between monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. And now you even know how many carbohydrates is in your food because you checked all the labels. I want to tell you the difference between glycemic index and glycemic load. So glycemic index is basically the extracted energy from the food without the fiber and without anything that is around it. So let's say that if we take watermelon, so watermelon has quite a lot of fiber in it, and it also has sugar and water. But if you extract it and you would basically take only the sugar, it spikes the insulin quite fast. So glycemic load actually takes into consideration also the amount of fiber in it. What spikes insulin and what is important for you? So the effect of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So let's look at it. If you eat only carbohydrates, you are spiking insulin more. So more plus signs you see in here, more insulin you spike. Insulin is the anabolic hormone, it's the fat maker, and you want to get it under control. So let's look. If you eat protein, there are only 2 plus signs. So it doesn't spike the insulin much, but it still spikes it, because we were saying that insulin is anabolic hormone, and it's also helping us to build the muscle. So we actually need some insulin to utilize the protein, the amino acids, to repair the muscle. The only macronutrient that is not utilizing any insulin in the process of absorption is fat. So no impact on insulin. And that's why ketogenic diet is so effective in control of diabetes and cancer. So cancer, in a Warburg effect, has been shown that it's feeding on sugar. So if somebody has cancer and they usually want to kill the cancerous cells, they go on a strict ketogenic diet under the supervision of a professional. The same goes for diabetic people. I do not recommend to diabetic people who already use metformin to go on a strict ketogenic diet and figuring out how to do it correctly. Carbs and fat. So you can see that if you are combining carbohydrates and fat, you are actually spiking the insulin. And this is why I don't recommend eating, for example, Greek yogurt with apple, because apple is a source of carbohydrate, and Greek yogurt is very high in fat. However, if you, for example, take cottage cheese, which is very low in fat and high in protein, and you, for example, combine it with carbohydrate, which can be, for example, carrot, because we know that carrot is starch and it is a carbohydrate, it is actually a good combination. So you can look at low carbohydrate and medium protein, this is the last one, and it spikes the insulin only with 3 pluses. So it's still manageable. Now, when we look of combination of a protein and fat. So if you were, for example, eating the Greek yogurt only on its own, not adding there anything else, maybe handful of nuts, almonds, handful of pumpkin seeds, and not eating anything else around it, and definitely not fruit, it would be possible as well, because then it's fat and a protein. Or you can have, for example, chicken or eggs with avocado and unlimited amount of vegetable. And then you are not going to spike the insulin. So the portion can be quite big. So look at the picture. Avocado, tomatoes, sprouted seeds, green vegetable, little bit of quinoa, which is quite high in protein, and chicken. This is a perfectly balanced meal that is not going to spike the insulin. Let's look at other combination. So high protein and low carbohydrate is also possible. So high protein would be, for example, chicken, and low carbohydrate would be the tomatoes, because tomatoes still actually have sugar in it. Or low carbohydrate could be, for example, spinach or any kind of vegetable, actually even pumpkin, for example, or a sweet potato. So high carbohydrate and low protein, it's the worst combination. So high carbohydrate, like for example, bread. So if you had piece of bread with butter and jam, you are spiking insulin crazily, even though it's probably the most delicious food, like a freshly baked French baguette with butter and jam, or a croissant or pain au chocolat with coffee. That is a ticket to the weight gain. Yeah, so you don't want to do that. So how many carbohydrates do we need per day? So as I mentioned, on a ketogenic diet that you need to do under the supervision of a certified nutritionist or a medical professional would be 20 grams per day. Low carbohydrate, however, is 80 grams per day. So again, check now, until now, how many grams of carbohydrates you were eating. I bet that even 120, 150, maybe even 200 grams of carbohydrate if you are vegan or vegetarian. Yeah, and then you wonder why you cannot lose the weight. I explained the difference between glycemic index and glycemic load, and I will show you in the next slides even more. So also, what time of the day are you eating carbohydrates? Do you eat it in the morning and then you go for a run? Do you eat it as a part of your lunch, or do you eat it in the evening? So I tell you that in the evening, you don't need any carbohydrates whatsoever, because you are not going to run a marathon in the night unless you go for a party. So you don't need it. So having carbohydrates as dinner, if you want to lose the weight, is not a good choice. For lunch, if you are, for example, preparing the presentation, having important meetings, when you need to brainstorm a lot and using a lot of your memory and focus, then you probably want to have some carbohydrates for lunch. I don't recommend carbohydrates for breakfast unless you are having the intensity interval training for at least 1 hour. What's your intention? So how many kilograms do you want to lose? And what is your lifestyle approach? So this is very individual. I cannot tell you to cut completely the carbohydrates to 20 grams if you live on them for past 20 years. So again, this would be very individual, and you need to take into consideration what is sustainable and possible for you. Because remember, we have limiting beliefs. If I say that I cannot do something, it is absolute true. And if I say I can do it, it's also true, because whatever we believe we can do. And then sometimes try this exercise. Every time when say, I can't go for a run, I can't cut down the bread, replace it with I don't want to. And you will immediately see it's not your priority. You don't really want. And it's powerful. I can't go for a run today. Well, I don't want to go for a run today. Yeah, try it. So what is the difference between the glycemic index and glycemic load? So I already mentioned the watermelon is, for example, 72 GI. The portion size recommended is 120 grams. It contains 6 grams of carbohydrates. So when 72 divided by the 6, times 6 divided by 100 is 4.3 glycemic load. With glycemic load, you don't want to have more than 10 per meal. Yeah? So you can download hundreds and thousands of the calculating machines. You can use the apps on your mobile phone if you would want to get obsessed by this. However, if you follow my Eat Clean, Get Lean shopping list, and you are going to use the ingredients from this list, it's all glycemic low index, very low and under 10. If you watch any of my videos, how I'm cooking, it's very low carbohydrate and sometimes even ketogenic. So I do not recommend to obsess by calculating any of these indexes. But just for curiosity to know, why on my shopping list you will not find this food, even though vegans are going to use it as a substitute of sugar. So for example, dates have 103 glycemic index. So if 100 is a pure glucose, therefore the fastest sugar in the bloodstream, dates spike insulin even more than glucose because it's so high in fructose, and our body doesn't detect fructose everywhere, so it can actually escape the process and make fatty liver. So I do not recommend to bake the cakes with dates, and you will never see me use any dry fruit. If you want to lose the weight, and if you want to keep your health under control, and if you want to reverse the anti-aging, you need to cut down the sugar and stop using any artificial sugar like maltose, xylitol, mannitol that are actually even causing a leaky gut. Maltose is, for example, in beer. Watermelon 72, kiwi 53, apple 38, banana, baguette 95, white rice 73, barley 26. So from this list, you already see that, for example, Ryvita, which might sound like a healthy snack, is actually not as healthy as having, for example, grapefruit. Let's look at the processed cereal. I do not recommend anything that is not clean and that is processed. So this has been processed, highly processed. To puff the rice, try to puff the rice at home. It is not possible. Even if you put it into the cooker, it's not going to puff it. Yes, you can puff the corn that has been pre-prepared from the supermarket, but not the corn that you take from the field. That one you also are not able to puff. So everything that is puffed was exposed to 1,000 centigrades Celsius, 1,000, and it has puffed and it has completely changed the molecular structure of the carbohydrate. It made it more available to spike the glucose levels, and hence, even though it doesn't have any sugar coating on it, it's only pure cornflake and only pure quinoa and pure rice, it still has extremely high glycemic index. It's going to spike the insulin, the fat maker, the anabolic hormone, and you will not have access to your fat stores, and you are not be able to lose the weight. So avoid this if you are trying to lose the weight. Now we look at the starchy vegetable. So starch, as I explained, is basically the storage of sugar in the bulb that is growing in the ground. So it's beetroot, potato, parsnip, celeriac bulb, you name it. And now you can see that even when you cook it, it has quite high glycemic index. So it will spike the insulin. Carrot, 50-50. I do recommend eating carrots because they are high in beta-carotene, which is amazing antioxidant, and carrot is such a universal snack with hummus, with cottage cheese, with tahini sauce, and it satisfies your crunchiness and cravings for something sweet. Now we look at pulses, which I do recommend in case you don't suffer with dysbiosis and leaky gut. So here we talk that if your gastrointestinal tract is in optimal shape, you don't suffer with bloating, farting, diarrhea, or constipation, and you don't have any inflammatory disease and any food allergy, pulses are good for you. And you can see that they are quite low in glycemic index. And why? Because they are a great source of protein and vitamins and minerals and lots of fiber. And this fiber and the protein is actually holding the glucose inside and doesn't allow it to get into the bloodstream in a faster way. And now here you have like ideas. The pages are indicating the functional medicine cookbook that I gave to you for free. I paid 70 pounds, which is around 80 euro for this book, but you have it for free. And you can use the recipes. This is used by nutritional professionals. And also here it depends. Are you going to exercise in the morning? and the exercise will be for more than 1 hour. It's going to be high intensity interval training, and you cannot skip breakfast. This can be the idea that you can eat. Are you going to have like start with the lunch because you want to lose the weight? Check the videos that I filmed for you, how to make a zucchini noodles, how you can combine it all together, and still you can eat parmesan, gorgonzola, cottage cheese, emmental cheese, try maybe creamy soups. If you need to snack, but you are, for example, not going to have dinner, have these low calorie snacks like cottage cheese with buckwheat crackers, or you can have berries with yogurt, so natural yogurt, not the Greek yogurt. And you can have kohlrabi with tahini and tomatoes. And that is unlimited amount, because kohlrabi actually is basically water and it doesn't have many carbohydrates. Or dinner. So what is the best dinner for the weight loss? We said that you don't want to eat too many carbohydrates for dinner because you are not going to utilize them during the sleep. When you are sleeping, you want to tap into the storage of your fat. So again, for dinner, I would recommend broccoli, cauliflower, and some source of protein, and it can be fish, it can be shrimps, it can be tofu, it can be eggs, it can be maybe fermented soya products like tempeh, you name it. So grab the pen and paper and reflect. How can you combine the food? And I also want you to share your ideas with me so that I can give you my opinion on them. So send it to me by email.